the time of assessing the situation at these places, we have to make things much better. And Mr. Speaker, the Guyanese people have spoken with their votes. They have given us the mandate to lead and to govern in the majority. In the majority. And it is our task, my task, to keep the people of this country informed and engaged with initiatives and actions that of the policies of the administration of His Excellency Dr. Irfan Ali, who stands in stark contrast to his predecessors as our youthful, visionary, and energetic president. And I would like to hear you laugh again. Laugh again. Compare that with what we had just a few months ago. The department of the state media, like the DPI and others, and by the way, the honorable member who spoke today, of course, it seemed to be they all allow themselves to be misguided for whatever reason, that the DPI had refused to carry the broadcast of the opposition. When I checked, DPI in the first place was not carrying any broadcast of the opposition or government on live stream. The DPI cameras are here supporting Parliament with its live stream broadcast. You see, when you must know that these things will not go unchecked. You must know that in this day and age, when you could have information so swiftly and easily and quickly, not the days of telegram, why would you even attempt to do this? It is only for the purpose of being mischievous. Totally. And I would ask that in the future, we make sure that our comments and such claims are rooted in fact. And so I hope that we be able to achieve that in this House. The DPI is expected to keep abreast with evolving technologies in an effort to deliver timely information to Guyanese in both here and in the diaspora. The NCN will be retooled, and we have to do investment in training, in the welfare of the staff, because, as I said, we took over a place that the people there are totally demoralized. No kind of guidance and vision and leadership were provided to these young, talented staff. Nevertheless, they were made to wend their way through the entity and to feel their way out on a daily basis. And I want to say that now you will have better management of these places, management that could help to steer them in the right direction, that can deliver on the mandate of making sure that the public information sector, especially the public information sector, because it is run by the state, that this sector would be one that would be admired and would be a leading example across the Caribbean.
Honorable Member, 2 minutes notice.
So we have to make sure that we achieve this. Mr. Speaker, we will be taking the government, we will be taking under the functions that I have been asked to do. We will make sure that we have a very busy schedule in the Prime Minister's office, where we will be engaging the citizenry of this country, understanding the impact of our policies. What are their needs? And how do we examine and how do we, as a whole, get feedback from members of the public? We will be supporting all outreaches. We'll be working on training and development among the state media and the public information sector, community engagement, as I said before, and working towards developing an IT platform for government communication. This is very important. I know, Honorable Member, you don't, the word training to you is like an offense, but offended, right? But yes, we will pay a lot of attention to training. You can't talk about developing human resources and without training them, preparing them for the new world, preparing them. Every day you have new techniques being used in IT and social media and all sphere, in every area of the world, every sector. New techniques. You got to understand that you have to constantly upgrade people by giving them training, Honorable Member Ferguson. You have to constantly upgrade them. Media development, broadcast modernization. Those are all areas that we will be focused on. And we will make sure that people benefit in such a way that they will be able to contribute significantly to our national development, because that is what we are all about, and that's why we're here. We are here to seriously develop this country and to be able to make the difference that you couldn't make, to make the difference in the lives of every single Guyanese, not for one village and not the other. And when you look at the measures in the budget, $25,000 will be coming to the home of every single Guyanese, including your home. Including your home. I already have a form signed that I will not be collecting any 25,000. So you could follow the standard, if you wish. So I am saying that we will have, when we put the 15,000 school grants, because we care grants for every school child in the public school, whose children are those? It's not CDP children versus ACNU children. It is the children of Guyana. When we take off VAT from electricity and water, it is not VAT taken away, that measure given to people in Crabrook and the people in Linden don't get it. It's not given to the people in Alexander Village and the people in West Rhymeville don't get it. It goes to every single Guyanese. And that is how we govern. We govern in a way that is, first of all, transparent and accountable. And I know many of you will cringe on that side. You don't like to hear those words.
Honorable Member, to conclude, you will need someone to give you an extension. But before I take the motion for the extension for the Honorable Minister, please, I am urging members. The Honorable Minister is making his maiden speech. Time-honored convention in honorable assemblies is that we allow persons who are making their maiden speech to go uninterrupted. And I am hearing quite a bit of heckling coming from the assembly. So please, we would want to continue to honor this time-honored tradition, because we have so many other members who will be delivering their maiden speech in the assembly over the next 4 days. Someone can move the extension for the Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, can I move and ask that the honorable member be given another 5 minutes to conclude his presentation?
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister McCoy, please continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And so we have a job to do. We will be doing our job. And we will ask all of you on that side of the House, honorable members, to also do your job and not to just do a job that doesn't coincide with the desires of the people of this country, which is to ensure that they benefit from development, that they enjoy the best their country has to offer in terms of the resources, the equal distribution among the many desires of our Guyanese brothers and sisters. And I ask that you don't be the type of opposition, might be a very hard thing, but I still feel I should ask you. I still feel that I should try to seek from you the type of opposition that will be helpful, an opposition that will not find itself burdened with the negativity and to be spewing negatives and will go into the streets to create mischief such as what we saw on the west coast of Barbados, that you will say to people of this country that I am working in your interest, but not just to say it, but also by your very actions, you will demonstrate it on a daily basis. And so we have in this country a far way to go. But you know what gives me and many other Guyanese the confidence that on that journey that we have to travel, we will find sweetness along the way, because there is a government called the People's Progressive Party Civic Government that will work hard every single day to ensure that the people of this country benefit. And you could decide that you reject all that I'm saying, but the facts are with us historically, in the history of this country, only recent is 2015. Whenever the People's Progressive Party Civic is in government, people of this country do well. They do well. And they do well not because necessarily there are some favored bunch of people. They do well because the programs and policies we provide and we implement are those programs and policies designed to make people do well. And while there will be challenges and there will be problems along the way, you can bet your last dollar, we will always be there with the people in the good times and the bad times, because that's who we are. We will be in touch with the people. We will make sure that we engage them every step of the way. Not the kind of attitude we saw just recently before the new government, where people were mistreated so terribly mistreated, and they couldn't get an ear from those on the other side, the ministers and so forth. And you know the stories about changing the numbers when they reach in government and so forth, and it's just horrible. Just horrible. So we need to recognize that this budget, put together in the shortest possible time, caters for every Guyanese, measures to assist those who are affected with the situation of COVID-19, measures to assist our farmers, measures to assist the vulnerable and the elderly, measures to assist our children, measures to assist our brothers and sisters from the hinterland, measures to assist teachers and nurses and everyone. And so this afternoon, once again, I commend this budget 2020 to the National Assembly and to say that you can look forward to great things in the remainder of this year and as we move forward into 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister McCoy. We now have for her maiden presentation, the Honorable Member, Maureen Philadelphia. Please let us give her the respect for her maiden speech. Honorable Member, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand here as a proud daughter of Region 4, specifically East Coast of Demerara. And I want to say thank you to those persons who would have allowed me the opportunity to represent their cause in this noble house. Mr. Speaker, this beautiful country of ours has been blessed with much resources, of which petroleum has been added to the list. We are now an oil-producing nation, and the good life has beckoned. Even as we speak of the economic prospects of Guyana, of which it is estimated that the Stabroek Block will produce more than 5 billion oil barrels, the management of this sector is of great importance in ensuring the prospects thereof benefit all of Guyana, irrespective of region, religion, or economic class or standard. But while the oil and gas will bring significant financial resources and enormous transformational opportunities, we need to ensure that in every aspect, in every sector, we capitalize on these opportunities, even as they are increased employment and job opportunities in this new sector. We must remain cognizant of all the other sectors that need our attention. Mr. Speaker, it is with great enthusiasm that I remind this noble House that December 20th, 2019 was declared National Petroleum Day in Guyana. This day ushered in a dawn of a new era. His Excellency, Brigadier Retired David A. Granger, former President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, in his address to the nation on December 20th, stated, and I quote, "No one should be left behind in a petroleum state," and I mean no one. Mr. Speaker, the final draft of the local content done by Dr. Michael Warner highlights that there will be focus on education and training. One of the goals of this policy is to promote education, inclusion, and advancement of Guyanese persons with the expertise and experience required to participate in the petroleum industry. This policy provides for programs of training for Guyanese to participate in the petroleum sector and progress into higher skill positions and the skill sets, competencies, related certifications that training participants will gain. This local content policy speaks to there being support for education and vocational training institutions, including providing support to the curricula, courses, and certifications. I recognize under the Petroleum Management 136 of the 2020 National Budget speaks to training of thousands of Guyanese at every level to create national core of management. Mr. Speaker, such statements arouse my interest and stir my curiosity. How can we get managers without thinking of the foundation? Oil and gas is new to Guyanese, to the Guyanese nation, and it is incumbent upon us as leaders to think about the legacy we are going to leave behind for our future generation. Education and training in the petroleum state should not only focus on the tertiary and the vocational training levels, but also students at the secondary school should be provided with an opportunity to be educated on these new resources. It is my view that a curriculum package focused on oil and gas should be developed for the secondary level. This will help our students to develop an appreciation and an understanding of the help our students understanding of the fundamentals of this sector and all that it can offer. This will no doubt aid as a springboard for them when leaving school and thinking of a career path and, of course, a path for higher learning. Mr. Speaker, having this base knowledge will no doubt encourage more Guyanese in seeking employment in the oil and gas industry. Mr. Speaker, engineers, scientists, and doctors weren't born overnight. It takes years of training to acquire these skills. If the nation is to acquire these skills, then it must be done over time, and we must start early on. We must start at the secondary school level. Our young people should also be provided with training opportunities outside of Guyana, with institutions such as the University of Aberdeen and Delft University of Technology, just to name a few, that have good track record in training for oil and gas. In 2020, the visiting president of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, Professor Sarim Al-Zabudi, spoke at the University of Guyana, fifth conversation on law and society. He stated that investing oil revenues into education will help fuel further economic growth. Professor Al-Bazoui told the audience that education fuels economic growth. He noted that we need to build the local capacity and capability and ensure that you introduce your local structures into the final process so that you achieve the successes of the successful countries. We need to continue building our human resources to participate in this growth. Mr. Speaker, the development in education will in turn bring about long-term sustenance to Guyana. As highlighted in Guyana's Decade of Development 2020-2019, there should be an emergence of an education nation characterized by every child being in school, every child graduating from secondary school, and the community having more highly educated workforce. Mr. Speaker, I would have looked at what was said before and recognized that this document that was produced before this Honorable House did not cater adequately for what was said before. Our goal should be to develop our human resources, to manage the resources of this country. We must also follow guidance from oil-rich countries so as to avoid their mistakes. It is my fervent belief, Mr. Speaker, if we capitalize on these skill sets available to us, this will be achieved in the shortest possible time. As noted by Director of Energy, Dr. Mark Bino, over 1,000 Guyanese are employed in the oil and gas sector. With increased educational opportunities, this number will increase greatly. It is therefore imperative that the revenue derived from this sector be maximized and used to transform Guyana's economy to one which is internationally diversified. We need to take full advantage of the contribution of the oil sector to ensure our future generations are prepared to function in a petroleum state. We need to invest in our future. For such a transformative industry, it is essential to have the human capacity that can handle the transformation that the oil and gas discoveries will bring. And we must ensure that greater portion of Guyanese are contributing to the local content remains a commitment for all of us. Mr. Speaker, this budget speaks to training of thousands of Guyanese at every level to create national corps of managers. I must also make note that such a blanket statement is not enough. Further, information and classification is needed and must be provided to this noble House. Can the Honorable Member, Minister of Natural Resources, provide this noble House with how much money was allocated for education and training under this sector? Can this House also be informed as to how much persons are catered for and what are the specific areas of education and training? And lastly, the duration of such. Mr. Speaker, as a budding oil-producing nation, we need to be visionaries and think broadly of how we are going to provide education and training to satisfy the growing demand in this sector. As a nation, we should always focus on establishing high educational standards and building its skills base, lest it be found wanting. Guyana is now producing oil, and we have the potential to offer a great deal of wealth to our beloved people if managed appropriately. Mr. Speaker, looking at what was presented to this noble House on Wednesday 9, September 2020, it can be deduced that same lacks capacity to capitalize on the competencies laid before Guyana as a budding oil-producing nation. Mr. Speaker, I wish to provide a few highlights. Being a geographical representative of region number 4, East Coast, I wish to share a few. Infrastructure has been a crisis under the PPP government for 23 years. It must be noted that over the past 5 years, there can no longer be any ranting of a green or red village and communities. I trust the other side can emulate which was created under the APNU-AFC-led government.
Honorable Member, 2 minutes notice.
Mr. Speaker, most of the farmers had to abandon their land and find alternative means of livelihood. This is so because the roadways and the waterways were abandoned, making it difficult for them to access their farmland. I must tell you, Mr. Speaker, that over the past 5 years, things have changed in this area. We would have had several rate fairs, of which Region 4 produced one. I must also inform this noble House that the lead project at Buxton is producing bountifully. And of course, persons in Victoria, Golden Grove, Nabaclis, and other areas have gone back to their farms. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that NDIA would have commissioned a pump at LBI. There's another pump to be commissioned at Belfield and one at Hope, in which you will have the honor of commissioning, but of course it's complement of the APNU AFC-led government. Mr. Speaker, the road on the East Coast Highway could have been classified as Sandy Beach. Today, Mr. Speaker, we can drive and be proud of what was prepared for us by the APNU AFC-led government. As a matter of fact, what took 45 minutes to take me from where I live to Georgetown is now 20 to 30 minutes.
Members, since we're on the subject of time, could someone move that you get an extension to conclude?
Comrade Speaker, I do so move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, Philadelphia, you can continue.
Mr. Speaker, in the budget, we speak to employment. But, Mr. Speaker, what I recognize is that we have built 2 nursery schools in Region 4 over the past 5 years, and very soon we will commission a secondary school at Good Hope. Mr. Speaker, what the budget did not seek to tell us, what the budget did not seek to complement of APNUFC. What the budget did not tell us, Mr. Speaker, is how are we going to people that institution and what system is in place to ensure that salaries are catered for, bearing in mind that this budget is not a people budget, but it's a budget for the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I now ask the Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Regional Development, Minister Alan Fasad, to take the floor. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First of all, please accept my congratulations to the ascension to the chair of the Speaker, and I wish you well. Mr. Speaker, I am honored to have the opportunity to represent the government and people of Guyana in this 12th Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, it is equally an honor to join my colleagues in support of Budget 2020, the first of the newly elected People's Progressive Party civic government. But, Mr. Speaker, I need this evening to respond to an honorable member who hailed from Essequibo, and to tell him that you can go to President's College and you can go to the University of Guyana, and they will not teach you. And they will not teach you the whole scenario behind the Amila Falls. Well, let me tell you, the Guyanese people would not have spent a cent in the development of Amila Falls, and it would have given us today 165 megawatts of power, and it would have also given us reduced electricity costs. I must also teach you that the AFC, APNU did not do any major development work in this country. The roads on the West Coast, we left those monies. The roads on the East Coast, we left those monies. The Sheriff Street, Mandela, we left those monies. But you know what happened? Squandermania took place. And as I was going through the budget estimates last night, I think I saw a page where shackles and handcuffs are going to be bought. Every single project that was done under the AFC will be investigated, and those investigations have started. Have no fear, honorable members. Have no fear. You know, from 2015 up to the 2nd of August, 2020, clouds of corruption and mismanagement was hanging over Guyana. But that is the reason why you all are sitting there in the opposition seats, and you will be there for a very long, long time. Mr. Speaker, this budget being presented after a protracted delay, a fallout from the 2020 general and regional elections, is presented at a time when our economy is under tremendous shock and tremendous stress, which must be addressed fervently to bring relief to all of our people. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2020 aims to begin that process of liberalization as it contains plans and projects which cater for everyone, every Guyanese, the ordinary man, the farmer, the law enforcement officer, the public servant, and most importantly, the medical professionals who are working on our front lines. Mr. Speaker, these commitments were made with a clear understanding of the role the sector will play in the People's Progressive Party civic development program, and with an understanding of the constraints of the sector. Mr. Speaker, therefore the party and now government was clear of what material and technical support the sector needed to be effective in fulfilling its role. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2020 has provisioned a total of $53.25 billion to the local government sector, and this is indicative of the government's commitment. Mr. Speaker, institutional strengthening of human resource and capacity building is an important pillar of organizational effectiveness. An initial training needs assessment has identified this area for attention. In the initial phase, the ministry will be strengthened to support the robust capacity building program to ensure the availability of the required skills, both in technical and managerial capacity, to deliver the work program. Staff will be adequately equipped to monitor the program's implementation to ensure program objectives, the hallmark of good governance. Mr. Speaker, the amount of $28 million allocated to policy development and administration, a commensurate amount will be directed to capacity building initiatives within the ministry. Mr. Speaker, the state of the physical infrastructure in the capital city of Georgetown, municipalities, and the neighborhood democratic councils have much to be desired. Crumbling infrastructure affects municipal and local government services delivery over the last 5 years. No maintenance works were implemented by the APNU AFC regime in the last 5 years and now sitting on the opposition side. That is where you belong. Whilst in the last People's Progressive Party civic government, the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, the following programs aimed at job creation, poverty reduction, and economic development were implemented. $25 million was spent for urban development programs, $15 million for community services enhancement projects, 25 million community roads improvement projects. Despite maintenance of business plans developed to ensure maintenance, sustenance, and expansion of the investment made, municipal and local government infrastructure were allowed to decay. Mr. Speaker, provision is made for infrastructure development, such as expansion to community markets, community centers, sanitary landfill sites, to practice proper solid waste management. Also being earmarked for upgrading some public goods that have been earmarked for upgrading by the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development that will ensure effective and efficient local government and municipal services delivery to our citizens. Mr. Speaker, the manifesto of the People's Progressive Party embodies the development of local economies with the main aim to provide transparency and accountability for local residents in planning, implementation, monitoring for compliance, and evaluation. Mr. Speaker, as Minister within the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, I will ensure that the municipalities and the local democratic organs are equipped to ensure that they deliver on their mandate to the benefit of their constituencies. Public participation and engagement with local government officials and residents will be high on my government's agenda that will forge a close working relationship among all local government stakeholders to allow for consensus in the decision-making process. Mr. Speaker, it is envisaged that the implementation of the 2020 budget will set a foundation for renewed hope and confidence for all of our people to promote investment, job opportunities, village economies, enhance community involvement as part of our support initiative. Mr. Speaker, the East Brownfield Market and the All Boys Down Market are in the third and second phases of rehabilitation respectively and will be completed in a short space of time. The People's Progressive Party civic government will continue to dedicate financial and technical support to those investment projects to provide adequate service to the local population. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development will actively pursue collaboration with all stakeholders to facilitate support and enhance municipal and local governance, management administration, and development to ensure that the participation of the development, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of the local sector policies. Mr. Speaker, the APNU AFC regime mismanaged this economy for 5 years by hiring many party activists in key positions. This practice was encouraged by the Ministry of Finance, which approved huge sums in salaries and stipends for them to use state funds and state assets to do continuous political work. Never mind you lost. Mr. Speaker, 2019 budget was passed in 2018, and despite the passage of the no confidence motion, the Ministry of Finance subsequently reallocated large portions of budgetary funds to aid political campaign promises. This resulted in many viable projects being discarded. A sum of $348,400,000 was awarded for projects in 2019 that never materialized. Listed below are some of the projects, values, and reasons why the projects were never materialized. A sum of $150 million was budgeted in 2019 for property inventory and valuation across all local democratic organs. This never materialized. The sum of 58 was budgeted in 2019 for a construction of a town hall and office spaces for Madhya municipality. This project was cancelled because, and listen to this, honorable members, this project was cancelled because issue with ownership of the plot of land that was identified for the building. So they had an issue with the ownership of the land. But imagine the APNU AFC went through with this project, identified a piece of land, and then at the end of it, knew it wasn't theirs. $33 million was redirected to the Ministry of Public Infrastructure for road projects in Madhya. No one knows if these roads ever were completed. The remaining sum for the construction of Aranaputa NDC building in Region 9 and the construction of Crockett Rising Sun NDC building, for which construction work for both buildings never started. A sum of $40 million was budgeted in 2019 for a plan of action for regional development. We call it PARD, for regions 1 and 6. This project was abandoned and the money was utilized for community grounds. The sum of $65 million was budgeted under the Georgetown Enhancement Program for the construction of an administrative building, phase 1 of the Georgetown municipality. The city council, user story, procrastinated on the project at every stage. 11 million was redirected to purchase a vehicle for the mayor after he had an accident and his vehicle was written off. The sum of 4 million was budgeted for the rehabilitation of the Friendship Community Center ground Pomeroon Super Dam. This project was tendered in 2019, but never got started. No reasons were given. The sum of 4.3 million was budgeted for the rehabilitation of Jack Low Playground Pomeroon Super Dam. This project was tendered in 2019, but never got started. Mr. Speaker, the solid waste situation in our country is plagued with an accumulation of socio-cultural behavior patterns and management issues. Over the next 5 years, the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development will implement several and regional development initiatives to curtail the scourge of the issues related to solid waste management legislation. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry will update the inventory of solid waste disposal sites in each of the 10 regions to determine, based on appropriate siting criteria, the open disposal sites which are to be closed and those to be upgraded to a controlled landfill. Of this 2020 total budget of $329.5 billion, almost 16%, $51.7 billion, has been dedicated to the health sector. Almost 16%, $52 billion, has been allocated to education, while for the productive sectors, $18.4 billion, or close to 6%, is for agriculture and the reopening of Enmore, Rhodes Hall, Skeldon sugar factories. Let me repeat. $18.4 billion, or close to 6%, is for agriculture and the reopening of Enmore, Rhodes Hall, and Skeldon estates. Those people that be fired by closing those estates. Mr. Speaker, in closing, the People's Progressive Party civic government has a strong program of decentralization and accountability by engaging the local citizens and our strategic partners and stakeholders involved in the decision-making process that will widen the scope to facilitate a wider involvement and commitment to decisions which affect their communities. We will continue to support a consultative approach to local governance to facilitate the maximum utilization of public resources. Among measures to be pursued are substantially increased fiscal trade transfers to the municipalities and the neighborhood democratic councils, strengthening local government bodies to manage resources, to take on enhanced maintenance responsibilities to support infrastructure development, strengthen local government organs in budget planning and preparation through a consultative process to facilitate financial management and accountability. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the People's Progressive Party Civic Manifesto promises, my government and the ministry's first-year implementation of project deliverables will place emphasis on improving the lives of all Guyanese and putting money in the people's pocket. Just to mention a few, and I hope it can resonate in the ears of you honorable members on the opposition side. 25,000 cash grants for households as COVID-19 relief. Then the Honorable Kwame McCoy was speaking about COVID-19. A member on the opposition mentioned that the $25,000 are crumbs. So like you imagine that coming to you. The swamp was drained. Removal of VAT on electricity and water. Increase in pension for elderly and grants for school children, including increase in school allowance. Remove, do you wear school uniform? Only ladies' school uniform they have, you know. Removal of VAT on hinterland travel. 2 weeks tax-free bonus for joint services. 150 million to support frontline workers as part of the special COVID-19 relief. Seems as if the word shame has disappeared. Considering the devastation meted out to the private sector by the last up-to AFC regime, as part of this emergency budget, several measures have been put forward to get businesses back on their feet again, and will include corporate income tax exemptions to support private education and healthcare, increase in eligible loans for mortgage relief, for mortgage interest relief, removal of VAT on building and construction, materials, machinery and equipment in mining, forestry, agriculture, manufacturing, fertilizers, agrochemicals, pesticides, and other key inputs in the poultry industry. Tax concessions and special incentives in agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing. Among those include for investments in agro-processing facilities, cold storage, packaging, along with special incentives, including land for the planting of corn and soybeans. Incentives for the establishment of industrial parks in the hinterland and coastal regions. Special COVID-19 relief. Notwithstanding the destruction of the economy by the up-to AFC, the rise in poverty and hopelessness, the People's Progressive Party, in its first budget, a mere week after taking office, has provided a suite of measures targeting all Guyanese, from the coast to the hinterland, school children to the elderly, public servants and the private sector. As Minister within the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, I stand here today before this honorable House to say that we on this side of the House will work tirelessly to ensure these measures are implemented and to deliver benefits to all Guyanese. We remain committed to our manifesto. We remain committed to our people. We intend to deliver on all the promises. This 2020 budget is the start of that effort. Let me commend the Minister of Finance for rolling out a people-friendly budget that will be welcomed by all Guyanese. It is my wish that all members of this honorable House show their support for the passage of this 2020 budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister within the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. Honorable members, this concludes our business for today. Honorable Prime Minister,
Mr. Speaker, I move the adjournment of the Assembly to 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 15th of September, 2020.
the Assembly now stands adjourned to 10 a.m. Tuesday, September 15, 2020.